Hi and welcome to a new video from Railroads of Old. I'm Benjamin. Today's topic is detailing and weathering these two rather anonymous flat cars. I bought them a number of years ago. They were part of a set from Bachmann, an 150 years anniversary set for the end of the American Civil War. And they're supposed to resemble two flat cars with various things on top from the United States Military Railroad, which was a special type of railroad company set up to supply the northern side of the war. The models are not that detailed. They are somewhat crudely done. They have plastic wheels and everything is more or less one color, but perhaps with a bit of weathering, detailing, and some loads on the cars, it can turn into nice models. That's my idea for now. Please stay tuned for let's see where it goes. When weathering rolling stock, I prefer to disassemble the models as much as possible without too much trouble. So in this case, it meant removing the trucks, which was easy. It was just held in place by a single screw. And then taking the wheels out of the trucks as well. The trucks are relatively well detailed. I think they look okay once they're painted and weathered. The wheels look quite bad with their deep flanges. I'd love to replace them with more appropriate and well-rolling metal wheels, but I'm unsure which ones to order. If you have an idea of a good replacement for these standard Bachmann cars, I would love if you could given me an idea in the comments below. Thank you. But now it's disassembled, so I think I'll start weathering the cars themselves with some washes and then perhaps paint the trucks. It seems to be, it has to resemble metal trucks. Anyways, they'll be covered in dirt and grime and oil and whatever from running on the railroad, so they'll get a bit of spray paint first. After cleaning the models in hot water and soap, I started distressing the plastic to make it look more like wood. Using a file, I just sort of randomly etched new grain into the car, so it looks more like wood. I had seen on several old pictures that the stakes on cars like this were usually quite worn, so I cut them to shape and filed them a bit more to make them look really beat up and well used. I had noticed that you can buy wooden kits in order to enhance the bed of the flat car, but in my experience it looks just as well by distressing and then painting and weathering the wood. So I gave the car a coat of grey umber, which in my opinion is a good color for the base of worn wood, and then I wanted to add weathering on top. After the paint had dried, I applied a wash from Citadel Colors, a Grax Earth Shade, one of my favorite washes. It's an acrylic paint, so it's not non-toxic, and it really dirties everything up very, very well. I made sure to get an uneven coverage, so it would make it seem like the car had seen a lot of wear and tear. Then I added another wash on top, this time and another acrylic wash from Vallejo called European Dust. I guess I should have found one called American Dust, but I hope it works on both sides of the Atlantic. The Vallejo washes are also quite nice, but compared to the Citadel washes, they contain a lot of pigment, a lot of color, so you have to be careful in how to use them. But this one does provide a wonderful sort of dusty surface, or at least a foundation for it. After the washes were fully dry, I made a brush ready for a dry brush using a titanium buff, a light sort of tan color, and put a bit of paint on the paintbrush and then wiped almost all of it off in a piece of tissue. And when you think the brush is ready, you need to wipe off some more paint and then wipe off some more paint, and finally figure out that there's still way too much paint on the brush. The less paint, the better. but it really enhances the detail very well. For the other car, I used more or less the same washes. First a Crux earth shade to give sort of a base layer of dirt, but this car that was sort of had turned into a sort of a short gondola, I wanted to add a load of coal as well. I imagine there must have been very much use for coal during the American Civil War for heating tents and buildings and driving locomotives and more, so that would be a coal load. So instead of just these lighter colors, I would also use a black wash on top in order to simulate some of the dirt from loading and unloading the coal. In order not to waste too much coal in the car, I prepared a little insert made out of cardboard and some cork in order to fill up the car. I mixed some white glue, water and black paint to a nice mix that wouldn't disturb the color of the coal. Distributed the glue and then first added some coarse coal on top. I just had a little bit of very large coal remaining that I wanted to use. Unfortunately, there weren't quite enough of it, so I ended up adding quite a lot of more fine coal on top. It's actually real coal, so it looks pretty good. Otherwise, I have some weathering powder that's also real coal in order to add on top, so it looks even better. But I think it turned out quite okay. Then it was time to work on the trucks. I mixed a dark brown paint that I sort of loosely applied, dry brushed on both trucks and wheels, and once that had dried, it did look pretty convincing as rusty, dirty trucks and wheels, ready for some more weathering powder on top. Once I had mounted the wheels in the trucks and the trucks on the car, I added a couple of colors of weathering powder. I use weathering powder from Bachmann Enterprises, which claims that the powder is mixed with pressure-sensitive glue, which sounds really space age and cool. I'm not sure if it works, but it's some nice weathering powders that really add some texture and detail to sort of the lower side of the car. I usually just use the dark rusty red, but this time I decided to add a bit of brown as well, and also to the car itself to give it a really dusty and well used look. The weathering powder is a bit fragile. You shouldn't touch it too much, or you might smear it off. Some people like to put some lacquer on top, so to some varnish to protect it, but I think that removes much of the effect of the texture, so I prefer to keep it as it is. It also requires a bit of a special brush. I use the same brush for all my weathering powders that never sees water, so I know that it's completely dry, because otherwise it simply turns into wet paint. So no water at all. But one place I did use wine varnish, an acrylic varnish, was on the top of the deck of the flat car. I think it'll be interesting to change the cargoes once in a while, so it's good to protect the layers of paint. And once the matte varnish was fully applied, I used my sort of standard mix of dirt and grass and pieces of wood and whatever that keeps on being refilled at my work table, and then added a bit of that on top to represent sort of dirt from older from previous cargoes. And then I called the cars done and took them to my photo diorama for a couple of shots of them. I think they look much more realistic now. It was a pretty simple and easy project detailing them, and I think it really helped a lot. And finally it was time to take them for a spin with a weathered locomotive on my test track around the wall. Well, that concludes a single afternoon of nice modeling. I'm quite pleased with the result, and I hope you enjoyed following the progress of weathering these two Bachmann cars. If you liked what you saw, please consider giving the video a like and perhaps hit subscribe in order to see new updates from this channel, Railroads of Old. Thank you.